You want to say anything about this thing?
That does not want to go on there. There's like two little welded on circles down here that this bracket's supposed to fit in between, but they're not lined up right for this bracket, so I had to grind them and file them, and finally I just used a screwdriver to hammer it and got it on, but I'm worried that it's not in the center like it's supposed to be. Alright, so it's a different day. Kind of ran into a dilemma a little bit yesterday on this beam when I was looking at putting on the steering box. I guess this is what it's going to be like when you've got aftermarket parts, but I found out that the mounts for the steering bracket do not work. They don't fit the bracket that's on there, and let me show you what I mean by that. As you can see, the bracket here has these little notches cut out of it so that you can only put it on one place, and what you don't want is your steering box, which sits on top here. This is like a clamp. You don't want it sliding around. That wouldn't be good. And so they put these half moon little pins here to recess to hold it in place. I don't even think these are in the right location horizontally, but they're definitely not in the right location vertically, because if you line these up, which by the way it doesn't fit, you got to grind it off and pry it to get it in there. If you look at that, if you look at this straight on, you can see at what angle that bracket fits. And if you look at the old beam, which I have here on the floor, and I put it on there, you can see that it fits much higher. It's rotated on the shaft there a lot more. So yeah, if I use these mounts, the stoppers on the pitman arm are not going to engage with the pitman arm. These bolts that stop it from moving right and left, they're way off. So these are in the wrong place completely. They need to be mounted up a little higher, up in here somewhere, I'd say. So trying to figure out what I'm going to do about that, and I've been online a little bit, and basically the consensus by some is to just grind them suckers off of there, clamp it down where it belongs. So what I think I'm going to do is, since I'm not 100% sure of the location, I'm going to take a few measurements, do my best job at trying to figure out where they go, and then I'm just going to clamp the box on there and get it lined up to at least where the bolts in here will engage with the pitman arm, and get that lined up as best as I can, and then I'll tighten it all down. And then I'm probably not going to do anything about these pins other than get rid of them until I put it in the car and make sure that the steering box lines up with the steering column. If it all looks in alignment and everything, then I'll come back through and maybe weld in some pins here back into the slots that are there in the bracket, just so that they can't move, right? I've got it in the right place, and I know it's in the right place. Conveniently, if you can see this, I don't know, but this plate on the right is a larger plate that ends right here, and it looks like it's got a couple of spot welds in it. So I'm probably going to drill those out and steel that plate, and then I'll use that once I get it lined up and I'm sure everything's fine. I'll put that into the notch on the bracket, and I'll just plug weld these, or weld around it after I've got it all lined up. The other side is just a pin of some kind, and I don't know how that goes on there, but I'll never get that off. At least I'll get this side. Maybe I'll just spot weld the other side. I'll just weld the bracket on there. I don't know. But anyway, that's the plan. So first step's going to be to grind these off, and then we'll see where we go from there. All right, so that's looking a little better. I got those off of there. It's a little thick over here. I couldn't get anything in there, but I think it'll be okay for what I'm doing. Next, I got to figure out how far over to make that steering box. I'm fearful that the steering box itself is going to hit this beam because I won't have it over far enough. So I may have to actually gouge a little bit out of this thing just to make it fit. It's purpose built for this routine anyway, so I don't care if it gets a little gouge out of it. But I think that's going to be next. So let me get the steering box put back on here, and we'll make some measurements and see if we can figure out where it goes. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but I don't know what I talked to you about and what I didn't, but I might repeat myself here. But so the happy medium here I had to get at was trying to get this in line so that this would hit a stop here. I took this off the old beam and here, so that I had a stop for both directions. These things, like I said, were all wrong, so I ground them off, and so they're not there anymore. Now I can rotate this wherever I want it and get it lined up, and then later I'll deal with this. So I think I've got it in the right place. It's hitting both stoppers. I've tightened this down. I think that's just what I'm going to go with. So now I'm trying to figure out if I'm in the ballpark here. And the only way I know how to do that is to try to take measurements to the bracket, comparing it to the old beam down here. But I can't just measure from here, because if you look at the old beam, this portion is way fatter than this. You know, I'm not even sure I can use the center of this, because the best thing I've got to go on here in this scenario is from the edge of the pipe here, and see if I can get over here and see where I'm at, right? And I'm looking at maybe about, if I'm eyeballing it right, about 6 inches to the edge of this bracket here. And that's pretty much what I was able to try to determine on the old one. So I'm just going to go with this. Like I said, when it gets in the car, I may have to move this a little to get it to line up right with the steering wheel and steering column. But, you know, this is going to do for now. Maybe I'll have to adjust it later. So I'm going to go on and start working on the tie rods next. All right, one of the things we have to do here is we got to put the new tie rods on these on these linkage arms, and you know, that's going to be a little bit of a trouble because you got to know, you know, where to put them because these kind of have to be in sync with each other correctly, or your wheels are going to be in and out. Now, obviously, you want to do a proper alignment eventually. So, you know, you probably want to take it to a professional to do that. It has all the nice alignment tools. But for now, we don't have that. And so we got to get it kind of in the ballpark initially. And I know that my wheels were pretty in alignment before. And so this isn't going to be an exact science type exercise here. But when we put these together, obviously I haven't cleaned these yet. I'm going to clean these all off, repaint the arms. And then we'll, you know, put the new tie rods in them. But for now, you know, in order to get them in the ballpark, you want to try to measure the old ones first, okay? Figure out where they're at. And if you put your new ones in exactly the same distance apart on these tie rod ends, you're probably going to be right there, or right in the ballpark to get you to the alignment shop, and maybe even be good enough, you know, if you're not having any wobbles. But, you know, I'm not going to tell you not to go to an alignment shop, because that's the right thing to do. So on this one, I'm just going to take a measurement from the center of the back of one tie rod end to the center of the back of the other tie rod end, and I'm going to write that down. Now, one of these tie rod ends, if you're not familiar with these, has got a slight bend to it, right? So there's going to be one with a slight bend and one with a straight angle on it, and they're not lined up perfectly. As you can see, you know, if you line this one up, this one's cocked that way just a little bit, and I think that's on purpose. Once I get this back in the car, I'll know more. But at any rate, we're going to take these bolts out here. They're kind of rusty. I could clean them up, but bolts are cheap. Okay, so we're back. I got these bolts off of here. If you want to know what those are M8 and they're 1.0 thread pitch. I'm just going to buy some new ones because it'll be easier than cleaning these old ones off. So what I'm going to do here, in order to get this right, because, you know, we got to get these tie rods on perfectly right to be perfectly aligned, and we should take it to an alignment shop, like I said. I'm just going to go ahead and measure these, and like I said, I'm going to go from the center of this tie rod. You always go from the back. You'll never get this front figured out. From the center of the back over here to the center of this one. And it looks to me like, for my particular circumstance anyway, it looks to me like I'm sitting right at 13 3/8 inches. So I'm going to write that down over here. 13 3/8. All right. And now we're going to take this other one. Now this one, obviously, if you look on this end, it's kind of missing the ball joint. So when I took this off the car, I was in a hurry, and I decided, rather than mess with that crazy castle nut and the cotter pin being stuck in there for 50 years, that I would just chop that off to get out of the car quickly and deal with that cotter pin off the car, which was really a good idea, by the way. But I don't have that ball joint out here, so I'm just going to measure from the center of this hole as best I can. Again, I'm going to start at the center of the ball joint over here as best I can, and I'm going to come over here to the center of the hole. Now, that looks to me like 28 and maybe 5/8, 9/16 or 5/8, one of those two, are right between them. So I'm gonna go with 5/8. So 28 and 5/8, and that'll get me in the ballpark anyway. Like I said, you should do an alignment, but this will get them fairly straight because they were fairly straight before. So I don't think I should have a problem with that. Now when I put these back together, I'll know what to do. Now again, you can tell by looking at this, if you stare at it straight on, that is crooked, and so it's not perfectly straight. We'll figure that out once we get it all together on the car. Okay, on to the tie rods. So when you put these together, got to make sure you got things on the on the right ends. There's a lot of tie rod ends here to deal with, right? So I have bought some new bolts for these. These are M8, and I think they're 1.0s, and they're finer thread ones. So they're not coarse thread, but anyway, you got to make sure you got the tie rod ends on the right sides of the pipe. So the threads on these, one's backwards, one's forward, and that's, you could turn this center shaft and move these in and out and at the same time with one direction. So we're going to go ahead and start assembling these. One of these, keep in mind, has got a bend in it, and that goes on the one end of the shorter shaft here, which is the driver's side. So keep that in mind. Now you remember earlier we've taken some measurements actually of a ballpark of where these should be lined up. So we're gonna take those measurements here over to the side and see if we can't put these together and duplicate that exact measurement that we had before, and that'll get us in the ballpark. So first of all, I'm gonna stick this one on here. The clamp on first, and this pipe has a divot in it right there, so that's where the bolt goes. And I'm going to be marring my beautiful paint job here, but it is what it is. Okay. Needs to go on a little bit farther. There we go. Now obviously we won't be tightening these down just yet. I just want to get them on here. We're going to try to get this in the ballpark here before we do anything. And according to my measurements before, this should be about 13 3/8 inches apart. So let's see where we're at. It's maybe a little difficult to do. I'm just eyeballing a little bit. 13 3/8. And you can see we're still pretty far off from that. So we got quite a bit more to do. Let's get this lock nut out of the way. Try to screw them in the same. Going the wrong way on this one. No, I'm not. Oh, can get really confusing here. All right, let's see if we're getting closer to the ballpark here. Oh yeah, we're really close. Look at that. I'm at 13 and a half. So we're really close here. Again, you can turn this tube like this, see, and it'll come closer together. Yeah, that's almost it right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. And we're going to try it out in the car here. I'm not going to tighten everything down yet. I'm just gonna, I don't know if I want those on all the way yet, but so this should loosely now separate and put. All right, so now that these are in, we'll probably try to torque those up a little better later, but for now this is good enough. Now this side I'm going to dry fit. We're not going to put it on permanently because we want to try to do a little bit of an alignment here, right? And so these have to come off or we'll never get the beam back into the car. So, you know, I will have to take this side, this longer one, back off because it has to go up over top. After you get this in here, it's got to go up over tops of stuff, and your dampener has to be in line, so it's a little trickier. So let's go back over here and see if we can put it together though. Okay, so once again, this has got to go in the correct direction. This side has a clamp, the other side uses a pressure fitting, and again, you put that clamp on, you got to get the notch in that split there lined up to where the bolt goes. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there is a notch in there. So go ahead and put that on. Now the other end is a little different, right? It's got a pressure fitting on here that as you know, tighten this lock nut down, it'll squeeze these together and hold it in place. So we'll get to that here in a second. And this one looks like it's supposed to be about 30 or 28 and 5/8 rather. 28 and 5/8. So let's see where we're at with this. And I think I only went to the center of this hole, if I remember right, because when I made the measurements, this was chopped off. And it's about 28 and 5/8, like I said, to the center of that hole right there, which is where I measured it before. We got 28 and 5/8. Again, it's going to have to be probably adjusted a little bit in and out, but I think it's close. All right, two here with castle nuts. This is going in over here, and this one is going over here. So I can see right now, it doesn't look like it's going to work exactly. All right, I'm going to try to do just a little manual alignment using a couple of sticks. Just two sticks laid on top of each other, thin wood. I'm going to go to the top of the brake caliper, like right here, to the top of the brake caliper over here. And then I'm going to put a little line right here where they join together. All right. And then what I'm going to do is the same thing on the back side of this. Now, it's going to be a little trickier. This is not a perfect alignment method by any means, but it'll get me in the ballpark. And I look at the back here and I put a mark here and I say back, and here's the front. So you can see the back and the front are out of alignment, so that means these are not straight on from each other like they're supposed to be, because you want that line to be right in the middle of those two marks. And so we've just got to adjust these in to where when we look at the back here and we look at the front, these marks line up. Because right now they don't match up. All right, so I'm going to work on turning these so that these are drawn in a little bit, because right now they're out too far. So these have to turn this way. No. Nope, I gotta turn it this way. Turn this one a little bit. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Okay. That looks like it's right on the mark here. So let's take a look at the back. And it looks like it's almost dead on. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these while I can. I got a couple of adjustable wrenches here. I'm just going to use those to tighten this down. I know this end is pretty well where I want it. Again, when it gets on the car, we'll deal with that, but for now, I just want to tighten this down. We may have to adjust it again later, but that's okay. All right, I think that side's pretty well adjusted, or pretty well tightened, I should say. So it's pretty good. Now over here, I've got a lock nut here, and I'm just going to try to tighten that thing down next. Let's use the big one. Loosen it and adjust it once we get it on the car. And I think I'm going to need a wrench to get the back of those, because there's bingo. All right. And so those are all shored up. Now, we're going to move on to shock absorbers.
That's not silly. I don't know why you just did that. Can you see the camera and where it's facing? No.
All right, we're over here getting ready to do the shock absorbers. Now, this has these toppers on them, as I mentioned earlier, and so we have to screw these on. I have no idea how tight to make these, so I'm going to use a little thread lock on these things. But these were hard to get on, so this came with this rubber mount piece separated from this plastic sleeve, and oh my gosh, it was hard to get them connected together, but a lot of patience and screwdrivering, I finally got these together. This would have been more like was on the original car, and we took it off, other than these are TRW old ones, and Sachs, S-A-C-H-S, the company, would have been the original equipment. But these are the original style. I might note these are not under pressure like modern day ones or normal ones. They do shock absorb, but they're not under pressure, so just keep that in mind if you ever get these. So first thing I'm going to do is take this off. This should pop right off the top piece of this will. There we go. We're going to go ahead and put this down through here like that. And mainly we want to expose this flat section. If you can see it, there's a flat section here that you can put a wrench on to get some leverage. We're going to try to screw this on top of it like this. But like I said, we're going to have to use a little thread locker on it. So I'm going to do that now. Just put a stripe on there. Okay, I'm going to thread this on. I don't know if I need to put it on both sides or not. Probably not. There's nothing really to hold on to, I've noticed. Okay, screw this on. I couldn't find any torque specs for this, so we're just going to channel lock it. And try to get as tight as I possibly can. With a tiny screwdriver or a tiny wrench, without killing my hand. Oh, come on, you. Grab it. There. Now I got it. I think it's tight enough. I'm gonna slip it off. Okay, that's pretty good. So now we'll just push this back up on here. There we go. Hey, one's done. We'll just do the other one the same way. Okay, these are pretty easy to put on. I'm just going to take off this top here down to the first rubber piece. Now these rubber pieces have a ridge on them, a recessed ridge in them that goes right in this top hole here. Makes a nice seat right there. So we're going to put that in here, but first of all, this goes on the bottom. That we should have a washer here, and then a nut, which we will tighten down and torque here in a moment. Now this, keep in mind, we got to push it up because it's not under tension, like I said. And it should. It doesn't seem to want to. There we go. This is torsioned all the way out, so as I pull this, it's going to draw this up a little bit. So I'm going to use the impact first. See if we can do this and get it drawn in a little bit, and then we'll. Alright, and then we'll see if we can get it torqued properly with your torque wrench. Alright, over here, I got this set to 25. Right there. And we'll see what this one's set at. This is supposed, oh, this has to be 14. This doesn't go down to 14. Excuse me. Do you really need it to be that? There we go. All right. That side's done. Now we can go over and do the other side. Okay. Well, I think that just about covers the bench portion of this. It's all done and all ready to go. So next job, of course, is to try to get it back on the car. So we'll bring you back for that when the time comes. Probably won't get to that today, but I think it was a successful endeavor here. Hopefully it helped some people here on this part. Like I said, I still do have to put this on. We also have the dampener, which, as I might have showed before, goes right here, and then that gets bolted right here. And I got to see if I can't find the bolt that goes there, but there's the dampener, and those things will go on when we get it on the car. This piece and the dampener we'll put on after it's already bolted to the car. So then we'll have to go and do some bleeding on these brakes, obviously, after getting on the car. We also want to do some things to the inside of the engine compartment. So let's switch over to that for a moment. It's kind of dark in here, but you can see I've got some really dirty pans under here in the front. So I want to try to clean all this whole area up a bit and maybe put some POR on it. It's kind of grummy. So we'll get that looking a little bit better before we put the front beam on there, and then we'll button it up. It'll be good. Okay, so I came back through here and tightened up some of these nuts. I did it off camera. So these tie rod ends here, if it's an M12 stud in there, then you want to tighten that to 22 foot-pounds. Okay, that's all of these guys, these nuts. These two, of course, I said are not on yet because we got to put it on the car first. They're not completely tightened down. But I tightened these other two, this one and this one down here. Those were 22 for me because that was an M12, and that's probably what yours will be. Then we've got a torque specification for this dampener here, the steering dampener. So the one here is 29 to 32 foot-pounds, and this little one over here that hooks to the tie rod end, that one is 18. So that one there is going to be 18 foot-pounds. And this set screw for the torsion bar, so the taper ring right here, this lock nut on the end of the taper ring for this tie rod here, that's 18 foot-pounds. Okay, so if you put that on, that's going to be 18 foot-pounds. Okay, I think that's about it. One other thing to note is I started wiggling this rotor around and it was a little loose. I think I had accidentally loosened. This is a reverse thread down here, and I think I actually loosened the big clinch nut on there, and so I took that back off and snugged it up a lot better than I had it before. But yeah, I think now we are ready to put this thing back on the car I've been working on the bonnet, the trunk compartment, the gas fuel tank compartment underneath the fuel tank, trying to clean it up a bit and POR it. So I think it's ready now to receive this, and then after we receive it, we'll come over and we'll get this anti-sway bar with the new brackets hooked to the underside of it. We'll put that on after we get it under there, because right now the way it's mounted, we can't get to it. It goes on the back side of this, so we're getting close now. All right, we can't forget, we got to pump this up. Got the grease gun on the Zerk there, making a mess too. So from what I understand, you pump it out until grease starts coming out of here. There's a cavity in there, so let's see if we can get it in there. I got this. Oh, did you hear that? Look at that. It's coming out. That's it. There we go. There we go. One's done. Now you gotta do the next 3 more, you know. Okay, folks, well, I think we're about done with this project. So the steering front axle assembly is in. A little hard to put in there with everything on it. You got to have some helpers because it's pretty heavy. Okay, so I did recheck all my torques and everything. Putting this in went together pretty smoothly, besides the heft and trying to work it in. I went ahead and put the steering dampener on there and torqued all that down. If you're looking for torque specs, the steering dampener to tie rod bolt there, that is 18 foot-pounds. This one over here that hooks it to the beam is between 29 and 32 foot-pounds. These top bolts, which I gotta recheck those, actually they're only 11 to 14 foot-pounds, and so it was easier, we found, to put some longer ones of those in to catch it and pull it up so it wasn't so hard to hold, and then swap them for the shorter ones one at a time. But those aren't very well torqued compared to the other ones. They're a lot looser. If you get underneath here where the beam bolts are, if you look at these here, I don't know if you can see that, but the ones here that hold it to the body, those suckers are 36 foot-pounds, and make sure you torque those up. A word, I did have to move the steering box a little bit to line it up with the steering column, and you know, it wasn't too big a deal. It lined up pretty good. Once I got it in the right position, I tightened it all down. It seems to work okay, so I'm not gonna, you know, labor or worry too much about that. I do have to do something here with this horn ground cable, because it's going to get caught up there on the little ball joint there on the tie rod end, so that has to be done. So eventually I'll probably come back here before the job's done and try to weld in something to keep that from spinning. I have not bent over the protective pieces of metal there that keep the bolts from turning. I'm going to do that next. But as far as alignment goes, I still think we're in alignment, of course, right and left. From the front of the rotor to the back of the rotor, I think we're still in alignment right to left. These, to my eye, look pretty straight. And the steering wheel, I don't know if you can see that through the glass, but let me open it up. The steering wheel looks pretty darn straight to me. So we won't know that till we get on the road if we have any slight variations. And at this point, if we do, and the steering wheel feels crooked or anything at going straight, I'll probably just remove the steering wheel and move it a notch over, something like that, rather than mess with these tie rods. But all in all, it was a very successful project. It just took a while. I had some parts missing and had to get them in. So I'm gonna try to button this back up here, get the wheels and tires on. Probably won't do that until maybe a few days from now, because stay tuned here. For you, it'll just be a second, but we'll put the wheels on this and maybe take it for its first spin. I do have to bleed the brakes. I'm not going to bore you with that side of it, but yeah, we're real close. Well, all right, here we are. The suspension is all back in the car. I bled the brakes. That was a little bit tricky, so I spared you all that hardship. And then I took it for, I did have it taken it for a test spin already. So the steering wheel was crooked, so all I had to do was pop that apart, pop it out, turn it a notch, put it back together. I think it's going to be fine. So this is the first time test driving it after that's together. And I missed putting the stable anti-roll bar on there, the anti-sway bar. But there's some good videos out there that show you how to do that. I strongly recommend you watch them. Channel locks seem to be the best way to do that. So worked out perfectly for me. So get on over to some fellow YouTube channels, and I'm sure you'll find somebody who puts those on, and channel lock seems to be the best. A little WD-40 on the rubber, put the clip over top the rubber, and then channel lock underneath to squeeze it together, and then slide the clip on. Very simple. So let's see what this thing does. Let's see if it's straight and narrow here. See if the steering wheel's right. We'll try it out. Here we go. Sorry. The wheel's on. It's still a little bit crooked. Still a little crooked. Not sure if I want to fix it. I think if I go another notch, it's going to be way off. So I may just have to adjust it by adjusting the tie rods at the same time. Feels pretty good. I was worried that the steering might be a little splashy. I might adjust that steering box a little bit. If I can, because it's just a little bit, when I'm right in the center where I should be going straight, there's just a little bit of play in the steering that I think is in the box. So thanks for joining me on this little project. If you like what you see here, please like and subscribe. I don't make any money off of these videos, I just do them for fun. But I appreciate your appreciation. So give me a like and ring that bell if you want some more video content. And we'll hopefully get some more up pretty soon. So once again, thanks again. Take care.